What's up and welcome back to Gabe Miller Music. In today's video, I am finally trying out one of the most requested devices for me to try out on this channel, the Elektron Digitakt, or possibly Digitakt, but I'm sticking with Digitakt for now. This is a completely self-contained music production device, as are many of the things that I try on this channel. It's got 8 tracks of monophonic sampling, which sounds a bit like the Circuit Rhythm, except the Digitakt came first, and it offers some extra features, sturdier build quality, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be digging into it, unboxing it, although it is a unit I bought secondhand, and then taking the time to get to know it, and I'll eventually be giving you my first impressions and hopefully making some music with it. All right, starting off with the unboxing itself. I did get this secondhand, so this has already been opened, but hopefully this will give you at least some of the idea of the experience, because I have not opened this myself yet. Oh, there's a substantialness to this, because like a lot of this is metal, so it's actually pretty heavy. Like, it's not gigantic. These look like these would be rubber pads, but these remind me of the clicky buttons on the Polyend tracker, although these look like they're much less likely to stick. And these are all like that. Some clicky button ASMR. Other than that, power supply unit and cables. So power bank, plug into the wall, and a USB cable. So this is the unit. Hands for scale. Let's take a look at the I/O. Headphones, outputs, inputs, very nice. MIDI, USB, power, pretty standard stuff. Is there an SD card slot somewhere? So it looks like the answer is no. Obviously, that's something I could have Googled beforehand, but you get the idea. I try to go in somewhat blind in these first day with device videos. Like, I've watched a few videos on this, but I haven't gone crazy in depth because I want to see how much I can figure out just jumping in using my background knowledge of other similar-ish devices. We'll see how far I get. Let's plug it in. Oh, it got snapped away. Okay, so we've got lighting up buttons to indicate what is selected. I do not like that little flicker. I am a person who has struggled with migraines all my life, so flickery lights are a no-go for me. Ah! We got sounds. Silly goose, that's not a clap. So I'm trying to test the limits of finger drumming on these, because obviously these feel quite different than proper pads, but at least they're properly sized. But doing little like double finger rolls like you would do on an MPC or a circuit or something like that, that's not really happening. They feel okay. I like that they're full size. I'll give it that. So we've got all this MIDI stuff here too, which I'll probably dive into as well. So look, this is reminding me of the circuit style step sequencer. I mean, obviously they're not the first people to do a step sequencer, but this looks familiar. You see the playhead scoot along here, so that's good. Looks like we're recording there. You record arm and disarm it. So your tempo stuff is living in here. What I want to do, of course, is turn on, whoa. Oh, so these are lettered and they correspond here. That's neat. If you're sight impaired, that probably is less neat. Oh, here we go. And there's a little tap tempo. Where's my shift button? I'm liking how much button per function I'm seeing. It'll just take me some time to learn exactly where everything is. Oh, here's my shift button, by the way. It's even colored differently, which is handy. Those of you who are watching who have already used this are screaming this at me. I'm not seeing any way to change the flickery lights, so I'll come back to that. Just might be something I have to kind of deal with. Let's look at these controls, though. I love the way this is laid out. You've got as many indicators as you could possibly want, but also physical control. So here's the true test. If I hold on function, yeah, look at that. It's by octaves, so I'm sure there's a way to get it to do it by semitones as well. There's a way to... Oh, it's got a loop. A little loopy boy. That's fun. Woo! Oh, and this pulls from your sample bank. So far, this interface is looking pretty self-explanatory, which I am a big fan of self-explanatory interfaces. Oh, this is so intuitive. Guys, I'm impressed. Okay, I'm going to leave these alone for now. This is like a track selector, I guess. So what I want to do... Chromatic. Cool. That's very much reminding me of the circuit rhythm, which I'm well aware that this came first, but that's just what I know. So that's how you're going to select a track while you're in a different window. Turn it off. I'm liking this. All right, let's get our metronome going. We got all sorts of little functions here. Active, it's on. Pre-roll, 1 bar. Go back to the main menu. Tried to say menu and window at the same time, it didn't work. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is reminding me of how the tracker likes to work with its play and record functions. Of course, I like this step sequencer better. That's going to come as a surprise to literally no one. I wonder how that's going to behave when programming chromatic stuff, though. That might get a little bit interesting. Some of this is reminding me of the model Cycles, which is also made by Elektron, so that's why. Let's just record something stupid. It's definitely unquantized. Like, you can hear my playing is just atrocious. Right now, let's go to quantize. So I can turn that on and off. That's nice. The filter stuff might be fun to mess around with. We've got a full filter envelope to deal with. That's so nice to have on a sampler. That can really bring a sample to life when trying to treat it like a synth. And for that matter, from what I've seen, this actually has a few synthesis features. In addition to the filter and amp envelopes, you've also got an LFO. That's great. And abilities to do some kind of FM style, but not really pitch quantized stuff, and some granular-ish stuff. There's stuff I want to dive into on here. Yeah, I'm going to take some time off camera to try to get my head around this, load some of my own sounds on, and spend a bit more time just methodically plugging away at each of the features, and I will report back in a bit. Okay, it's a couple days later. I'm counting this first week as just a week's worth of time, because I'll probably be doing this on and off in the midst of doing my real job, trying to maintain some semblance of a social life, and then working on other videos. I actually wasn't even planning to be filming right now. I was just trying to figure out some stuff related to samples, hit a couple of epiphanies from a couple of YouTube videos, and wanted to just incorporate that into the video. So, actually getting sounds onto this thing. I downloaded Elektron's sample and other file transfer software, loaded a bunch of sounds onto here, and also updated the firmware. So now I've just got a bunch of folders of sounds. I should have been more organized, but regardless, now I can go in, hit function yes to audition a sound. Sure. Hit yes. I'm just going to indiscriminately hit yes on a bunch of stuff. Go to the side here, and then you'll have the option to load to project. Hit yes. So let me go all the way to the top. This loading process is actually reminding me quite a bit of the loading process, sure, on the Polyand tracker, which isn't my favorite in the world. Like, there's nothing actually wrong with it. It just takes a little extra time. The benefit, of course, is that you can have so many more samples at your fingertips. It just takes a couple of extra steps to go through. So I've loaded a bunch of stuff in here already. Let's get out of this. So these are the defaults. Sure. So my plan is to do kind of a sample flip type thing, load multiple samples onto one track, and it'll switch between them. And I'll show you how I'm pretty sure that's supposed to work in a second here. 32 steps will do just fine. You can go up to 64. That's only 4 bars, which I would love to be 8, but I've put up with it on the Electribe, so it's not like it's the worst thing ever. Okay, so that's quantized recording. You can cycle through the unquantized and quantized record options. So in this case, I'm going to put in the place where I want some snares to go. I'm just going to sequence those in on these steps. They call them trigs. Steps are so ingrained into my brain that I am just going to continue to call them steps. So I'm going to hold this step down and then switch out the sample. Okay, that's not quite what I meant to do. Let me just get rid of that. Set that here. Select that snare. Little future bass thing going on here. That's super straightforward to set up. I was worried that like a term like parameter locks makes it sound like it requires some setup. That's super easy to do. barely an inconvenience. It's not quite as convenient as it is on, say, the Circuit Rhythm, where you do that just with the press of a button, but this is the next best thing. This is about as good as it's going to get with the way that this thing is laid out, and I can definitely dig it. So, that's all living on one track. Leaving this track free for, say, hi-hats. What if we throw an 808 in there first? Accept that change? That'll do. So I'm going to leave this 808 alone for now. That's just going to do its thing. This needs to become a hi-hat. I can't be bothered to load in another hi-hat right now, so I'm just going to use one of the default ones. I want to mess with the amp. Love that the overdrive's just built in here. I actually want to try some automation. Let me record something in real quick and let's see if I can get an automation to even work. That's a little corny. So I'd love to try to automate. Damn, the range on that's a lot. It might not sound good, but at least it's interesting. Let's load something else in. Yeah, let's do that. Turn down the volume to compensate for that. Send that through the reverb. No. Center. Excellent. Oh, I love the little delay icon. That's cool. Nice. Look at me doing sound design on a sampler. All right, function, chromatic. Not bad. Like, it's not all that creative, but it's a good start. Let's see if I can figure out how to do a hi-hat roll. Make sure I'm on the right page. 1, 2. So this dude should have a roll. Oh, we could do some panning shenanigans. That'd be kind of fun. Have it go increasingly further out. Kind of kills the rhythm of it, but that's fun. I'm in the business of chaos at the moment. We'll make something pretty later. Look, we still got these other tracks free. That's the beauty of like a tracker step-based style workflow. You'll see this on the Polyend tracker. You'll see this on the Digitakt, obviously. You'll see this on the Circuit Rhythm. I think people really underrate it for just how much you can cram onto one track. And so these 8 tracks can be a lot more than just 8 tracks, if that makes sense. Because you can have, say, your kick and snare, maybe even a hi-hat if you really want to get ambitious, all loaded onto one track. You can get a lot of little layers going on. Maybe it's going to take more effort to make, say, chords, but if you want to have a bunch of interweaving little elements that make you not even miss having chords, or you just sample chords as one-shots, you've got a lot of options. And I think that's something that can be underrated at times, this whole workflow. I am already quite familiar with that because of the Circuit Rhythm, which is a workflow, user interface rather, that I'm more used to. But this user interface is really cleverly laid out from what I'm seeing so far. It's just, it can do more, and it's a little stranger, but that's fine. That just takes a bit more time to get my head around. Also, to pick up a thread from the other day, as long as I don't stare directly at this and like fixate on the flashing lights, the flashing lights are fine. I like how bright everything is. That's definitely a positive thing. I might have just had an epiphany. I was trying to do that hi-hat roll thing earlier. Re-trigger. Nice! Look at that! What if we took this even further? Oh boy. Lovely. Button per function stuff. It makes really good use of the screen relative to the physical controls. And this stuff is nicely labeled. Like, this is really growing on me at a rate that I didn't expect. In terms of the interface, I can definitely see the appeal. Let's say we keep building. So I definitely want to mess with this sound a little bit. Take me to that filter. Resonance. Get those pew-pews. Ooh. That's a lot better. It's like a weirdly adorable little beat. This is very far outside my normal style. Okay, how do you turn tracks down? Okay, volume is very important right now. Amp. Is it literally just that? Yeah. This could use some delay. That kick is almost becoming unnecessary. If I was to use Overbridge to export these individual tracks, which I definitely do want to get into over the course of this video, probably sidechain that 808 to the kick a little bit. Those aren't quite meshing. Actually, what am I saying? Let's do this. There we go. Got these envelopes in here, may as well use them. That like elevates the energy level a bit. This is as good as this particular musical idea is gonna get. But I did have a cool idea just now. Well, let's play with the LFO. Send it to, what should we send it to? Something related to the filter. Filter frequency. Oh, that's nice. So I want this to start. Yeah, I'd rather get something warblier. The overdrive's fairly subtle. I can dig it. Give that a little bit of shimmer. Nice. I can dig it. Let's save that. And at this point, I've got more tracks to work with. Well, track. But I'm going to actually call it for right now. I'll come back to a few more aspects that I want to cover in this video the next session. The final things that I want to try out for this session are mostly related to connecting the Digitakt to other stuff, especially an external synthesizer, both for sampling the synth tones into this and for sequencing this with the Digitakt. I know that there's a ton more baked into the Digitakt. This thing has a ton of features. It's incredibly deep and I'm barely scratching the surface, but I've got to cut it off somewhere, and this seems like at least a good amount of stuff to cover for a first impressions type video. So, the first thing I want to do is get some sampling going. So I should be able to hit this for the recorder. Let me see if I can get sound out of this. Okay, here we go. So I just had to turn monitoring on. So that's easy enough. Select a different patch, maybe. Nice. That looks like that was pretty easy. All right, so I've renamed it. Hit yes. It's saving it, and I could just assign it to a track right away. That's nice. So let me go back to the normal. Nice. Okay. So that had a couple more windows to jump through than I expected, and at one point, we've cut this out, but I jumped out of that window and tried to start searching through my list of samples already. But now I've got it working. Now I just know I need to make sure I go through everything properly. And now I can do stuff like change my start. Right there, for instance. This little pop there, so I want to get right there. And now I could do chromatic. Okay, so that works really nicely. The other thing I want to make sure I try while I have this here is sequencing of external gear. Let me get out of chromatic into track. Let's select a MIDI track. So I should be able to function press to enable. Oh yeah, you can press the knobs. I totally forgot about that. And then I want to see if I can actually get the audio of this to show up in here, because I think it's working. Not 100% sure because I can't hear it, but let's see if I can figure this out. Okay, so there's good evidence that I don't have this working yet because I hit play and the sequencer didn't start. Okay, so I jumped into the recorder. And actually, as it turns out, this is working just fine in terms of MIDI sequencing. So all I had to do was set my source, basically. And now, polyphony. 4 voices, I believe. They can act a little bit weird from what I understand. But that's nice to have. So I can record that stuff from here to sample. And now I'm wondering if this will stay on if I leave. Yeah. Okay, so now, let me just record something real quick. Nice. So I was able to get the audio from this to pass through. I just had to go into Direct and make sure that it was set to monitor it and it was out of that sample saving window. So the little doot 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 is coming from this. Okay, so we know that works. That's pretty straightforward to set up. I'm assuming I could do the same with another input and get something else running as well. You can't really process it, but that's fine. Once again, from my point of view, this is quite similar to the circuit rhythm. Or more accurately, the circuit rhythm is quite similar to this. Except this is actually polyphonic, which is nice. The last thing I want to do for this particular video is try to connect the Digitakt to my computer, try to get some multi-track audio out of it. All right, it's quite a bit later in the day. I had to go do some other stuff, and so now I've finally gotten back to the Digitakt. I installed Overbridge earlier and just rebooted my computer for the installation process. And this is what launching it for the Digitakt looks like, which looks intimidating. There's a bunch of control that you have over here. I'm going to ignore all of that. And in fact, I didn't have to touch any of this at all. Literally, I popped it open, and I don't even know if I needed to, plugged in the Digitakt to my computer, went into Options and Preferences, and selected the ASIO drivers and the Digitakt, and then it even automatically populated the inputs in the order that I would want. So then, all I had to do was create tracks, assign each input for each track, arm them, and now, if I hit record and play on the Digitakt, watch this. It's recording the individual mono tracks. It's literally that easy. So that's right up there with the MC101 in terms of ease of use. It just requires like a separate piece of software to get it to talk to everything properly. But yeah, I am a fan of that as a system. That took very little effort to set up and probably won't be too bad to set up in the future either. So that's really nice to see. Good on you, Elektron, for making that so straightforward. So now that I've gone through all of that, here are some quick first impressions. And bear in mind that I still feel like I've only scratched the surface. This thing is deep, but once I got over the initial hump of the learning curve, everything kind of fell into place. And I found myself already navigating this thing pretty quickly, which was a pleasant surprise. My other reference points for 8-track monophonic sampling groove boxes are the Innovation Circuit Rhythm and the Polyend Tracker. And in terms of functionality, this kind of feels like a Circuit Rhythm Pro. And the workflow is what I wish the Polyend Tracker was, essentially. That's personal preference, of course. I just connected with this more than I did with the tracker. I still connect with the rhythm even more, and the most painful limitation on the Digitakt is the 4-bar pattern limit. But I've worked with that on the Electribes. I can work with it on this too. And I have gotten used to the clicky buttons. Of course, I would still prefer pads just because that's my go-to, but these are pretty fun. And I wouldn't take this in public because I think this noise would just annoy people around me. That being said, I would love to learn to power this portably with some sort of power brick. If this is enough, and if there's some kind of cord I need to get to make that work, and you've got some experience with it, let me know in the comments below. But one thing I want to draw your attention to is the screen. I really like the way that the screen is implemented into this. And I'm not always a huge fan of screens on devices. I tend to like button per function, as little reliance on a screen as possible. It's not that I dislike them, it's just I don't like relying on them too much, or else I may as well just use a DAW and a MIDI controller. But in a lot of ways, the functions shown on the screen feel like extensions of the physical controls, and it's laid out really cleverly, in my opinion. And it feels really good to use. There's a lot of feedback that's very direct. I'm a fan of the way the screen and the buttons and knobs interact. I think that's really cleverly done. The I/O is good. Working with recording stuff in and sequencing stuff was pretty straightforward, as was recording individual tracks, which is always nice to see on grooveboxes. And of course, I love all of the amp and LFO stuff in here. Basically, back when I was first getting into standalone music production hardware, I didn't understand why people love this thing so much. And now, having tried it, I totally get it. The feature set is really nice to have. I think Elektron has sold themselves short by calling this a drum machine. This is a full-on groovebox and quite a powerful one at that, and one I would love to dive deeper into in the future. It's got its own quirks. There are some workflow things that I think could be a little bit smoother, and of course the 4 bars thing is just very sad. But overall, so far, I've actually really been having fun with this thing. So hopefully I can make something a little more interesting than the beat that I've made in this video in the future. If you'd like to see more first day with devices type videos, especially ones focusing on samplers, you can click or tap up over here somewhere. I've got a few more videos for you to check out. And of course, I'll be back with a new video in a little bit. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching.